I love talking about education and technology. AI is my thing now since ChatGPT entered the world and surprised everyone with this potential technology. So I'm very happy to share with you my questions. Okay, I'm not sure I'm going to have very straight answers because we're all creating. This is a very creative moment, socially speaking. We have to be critical and creative together. And I'm going to share with you today the perspective of schools and the work that I've been doing with schools and talking to teachers and understanding how they're using AI. And I'm going to bring these practical case studies. So I'm going to bring more a perspective of opportunity and optimism, but do not be fooled. I do understand the risks, and we should have conversations around that. There are lots of risks, and there are lots of unknown risks as well. And we do need to also have critical thinking and be concerned about AI in education. But let's go on with the conversation, and then we have the opportunity to talk. So I founded AI Goes to School last year, and what I started to understand was that this technology was going to impact everyone very much. And as a previous educator, I was a teacher, an art teacher for 7 years in the beginning of my career, and then I became an ed tech researcher. And I started thinking, I want to be part of the movement of understanding how we can include AI in schools. Because, you know, everyone asks teachers to react and to go with the flow very fast of all the new technologies and things that are happening in the world. But if there are resilient places in society, they are schools. People have their time. Learning has their time. Teachers also need their time to learn about new things and feel safe about their knowledge to teach the students. So I wanted to be part of the movement, and I'm going to share a bit of questioning and ideas that I had during this this process. So, arrow down and arrow up. Can you pass the slide? Yeah. In your pockets, does everyone have smartphones with you in your pockets today? Okay. So you recognize many of the apps that are there. You probably have many of them. Well, congrats, you have AI everywhere. You have AI in your pocket. Incredible, right? And we've had them for many years, and we weren't even aware before we started talking about AI. Awareness is very important because it's like when we're trying to buy a new car and we look at a color and then suddenly we see those cars everywhere around us, right? Because we are now aware of artificial intelligence, suddenly we see it everywhere. And these apps are everywhere in our lives. They've been for many years. We've been benefiting from them, and they've had lots of impact in our lives. What impact do they have? These are important questions for us to ask and for educators to ask themselves as well, and to teach students to ask these questions. Every technology that we have in our pockets, in our house, in our schools, that we use every day, impact us. If I use Spotify, I am impacted by the choices the algorithm of the company that built the algorithm chooses the music for me. It recommends my preferences. But you know what I do when I really want to find new music that has nothing to do with my preferences? Because, you know, I have a certain age and experience, so my preferences might be limited, and I don't want to be limited. So I like Spotify sometimes. Other times I go to this French radio online that has these playlists going, and I love to be surprised, and I add my favorites to the playlist on Spotify. So the impact that these technologies have may be positive or not so positive, but it's us individually who need to be critical thinkers about this and choose when or not to use these technologies. And so here comes, these questions come through the ethical AI journey of critical thinking about these topics, right? So when we start to question if this serves me, how does this serve me, what impact this has in my life, we start the ethical journey of questioning about AI. So we start usually doing something that is called looking for information, being literate about the topic, right? That's why for me, AI literacy is the first moment where we together start building knowledge to be more critical and start thinking about ethical issues. And just to put everyone on the same level, because we talk a lot about AI and sometimes it's important to define and not just assume that everyone knows what AI is. You know how many years AI is going to be next year? Its birthday, the technology's birthday. It's going to be 70. It's the grandmother. You know, has the age of our grandmothers or more. So it's been many years since the evolution of this technology, and you have here a diagram that shows the evolution of the technology of AI. So artificial intelligence is a theory and methods to build machines that think and act like humans. They imitate humans. Great, what a great problem to try to solve. Scientists were really curious 70 years ago, right? And this technology has evolved through several subcategories. It was created machine learning, the ability for computers to learn from experience or data without human programming. We have that in Netflix, we have that on the spam. We benefit from this technology already. We don't need to be so aware of it, but understand that we're already benefiting before ChatGPT, because AI, again, has the age of our grandmothers. And then there's the subcategory of deep learning, which is more complex. It's a model of artificial intelligence that mimics the human brain and uses artificial neural networks and performs very complex tasks. One great example of this is the self-driving car. More complex than this. At the moment, I can imagine maybe surgery is complex, but this technology demands that this object takes decisions based on the data that it was trained on, and very sensitive decisions, right? Does it go over an animal, a person? Does the driver go against the wall? What happens? So it's quite complex. Siri as well, our assistants, virtual assistants also are trained with this technology. And then we have the latest one, and the one that probably many of us use every day, generative AI, which is another subcategory of artificial intelligence. And with generative AI, we have this new generation of content through image or text. So we talk with the application, with a tool that has this technology, and in very natural language, like I'm doing now with you, and it generates content, either image, audio, a text, in a very similar language that we would have in interacting with a human being. It was trained for that, very well trained, because sometimes we kind of get fooled and we kind of forget that it's not human, right? It seems like there's a human texting us everywhere. But this is very important. So this is the technology evolution of AI, and now we all know about it. And what does AI mean? We have this. So AI mimics the human intelligence. It simulates the human intelligence with a machine. It is not human intelligence. We are human. That's a machine. It's only imitating. Artificial intelligence has the models that analyze data. It's trained, which means that this model makes predictions through statistical inferences according to past trends. And past trends, why? Because the data was already created. So it's something that happened in the past, and that feeds this tool, and the tool will now use it to give us outputs, which is fine. We live with information from the past, right? But let's be aware of this. But it does not have creativity or critical thinking or emotions. It's trained to imitate those processes that we as humans have, because we really want, it seems that I'm not sure we really want, but it seems that we really want a machine that interacts in a very human-like way. So we have now this collective understanding of what AI can be. And, too fast. Can you help me? Yeah, more or less. It's my, I think I should have taken a second coffee. I need more strength in the button. That's the thing. So the process is this. Data. This was done with AI Goes to School. I have the luck of having been a researcher, so I have the conversation with researchers, and Susana Braz is a data science researcher at the University of Aveiro, and we did this diagram together. And so the process of AI is data that is used to train the models which are deep learning, machine learning, generative AI, and then it generates value. These two things together generate value. We see the value and the way that it's operationalized. If you use a self-driving car, it's one type of value. If I use ChatGPT, it's another type of value. But there are many challenges. Remember when I said about data in the past? We have challenges in this data. There's not much transparency about the data that's served to train the models that are behind ChatGPT, for example, or any other generative AI tool that we use. Is this, and these are questions that we need to ask, is the data representative? Does it represent the population, the entire population? Does it have imbalance? Because if it does, we're going to have to deal with it in the outputs, and we have to be critical thinkers as well about the outputs that this tool gives. If the data is not complete and we don't have transparency, can it generate bias? Yes, it happens. So if the data is incomplete, incorrect, or unequal, it generates bias. We've seen these many examples. If you go to ChatGPT, I did this last week and asked it to show me the image of a doctor, and it generates a white male young person, right? And then if I say, please generate the image of a doctor and a nurse, and I'm not specifying gender, it always shows me a woman as a nurse, and then you go on, and then, because traditionally in the past and in the present, the relations of power have reinforced this conception, this preconception. It doesn't mean that it's correct, right? It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It means that in your cultural context, you need to be critical about the output that this tool generates, and help your students be critical about it as well, to accept or not accept, and to dialogue with the tool, because this is very capable technology, so it can give you what you want, but you need, as the human, to know what you want. That's the most important thing. Okay, and those are the challenges, because it's everywhere, and if this data is not truly representative, and we don't actually know which data was used to train, then we have ethical future problems, issues to deal with, right? And we need to address them. So I'm gonna put my strength on the button, and that's the secret thing. And when we're talking about ethics in education, the ethical journey, we're talking about some of these aspects. Literacy, first of all, very important. We need to empower educators and students with the information and the knowledge to be critical thinkers about AI. We're talking about fairness and having the conversation about fairness, ensuring that these technologies are for all, they serve all, they are accessible to all, and they represent and are diverse, because it really needs to be diverse. It's not a tool made for me. It's a tool made for everyone, and I need to be represented, and it's not admissible for the tool not to represent me, for example, as a CEO, just because I'm a woman, or as a top high-ranking academic professor, just because I'm a woman. We need to have transparency. We're talking about, this is a conversation we need to have in schools and with our kids, making AI processes clear in the school. Also, know about the transparency of who built the tool and the data, and be transparent in our community about how we want it to be used, how it can be, how it cannot be used, how it's not allowed, what's considered correct and not correct in that moment. Build the conversation. This is ethics conversation with the education community. And of course, we cannot avoid issues that are hard, are difficult sometimes to understand about privacy and safety. Students' data is the most important thing to keep safe. They are children. They do not have the ability to decide if they allow their data to be processed and used. You are the responsible adult as a parent, as a teacher, as a school leader. So you need to be informed about the tools that you're using, what they are keeping from student data, what is the data going to be used for, and you need to be accountable because there will be risks, things will happen. It doesn't mean that we're not going to use the tools. It means that we are aware and we are making clear and transparent choices with our community, okay? These considerations, these principles for ethical thinking in education are very important, and the UNESCO brings some competencies that are really important for teachers to have related to these ethical principles. And I more or less divided these in 3 areas of competency because UNESCO divides on more, like level 1, when we start getting to know about the topic, and then a more deep level, and then a more creative level, because when we're creative, it means we're using the information and transforming it to create something new. So that's really the deep level of it. So the competencies of teachers, there's on the right with the light blue squares, are related to these principles. The protection of human rights. Teachers need to know how to use AI in literacy and fairness and transparency to have the conversation and develop work with students around protecting human rights, making you students aware about their human agency. We're not controlled by the tools. We control the tools, actually. So don't forget that. And we can write to people who create the tools and say that this doesn't serve us. We can explain and ask questions and ask for answers. So we have lots of agency, and teachers need to build these competencies in order to work with students with them. We need competencies on promoting linguistic and cultural diversity for languages like many of ours who have gender within the language, for example. That's one of the things that we need to be culturally sensitive to. But we also need to be aware of how language builds the results and the outputs of these tools, because we are giving it instructions with words. These tools depend a lot on language. Many times I question myself if a small kid or someone that is not so a dyslexic person, for example, or people that are not so literate or linguistically developed or feel so at ease, enriched because of their personal context, how difficult it is for people to interact with this tool, because sometimes for me it's tiring to always be talking and writing and asking, even if I record my sound with generative AI tools. So teachers need to gain competencies to also evaluate the tools. Which tool serves me in my class, which don't, how are they impacting, which data is being collected, and how is the data being used in my class. And then in the last level, teachers need to develop their competency towards critical advocacy, be informed really about this, leading discussions and actions like we're doing here. We can have conversations with students in our class, and I'm going to show you some examples next of how that can be done, and be aware of these concerns, not only sustainability with these tools, environmental impacts that they have, and how we can create and use it to create sometimes these tools as well to solve some of these problems. Maybe we can have it as a partner. But moving to the practical examples, and I'm going to go back. Teachers are responsible, have a very high responsible role for the education of AI with students. And I'm showing you next 3 case studies that I documented in AI Goes to School. And there are many others, very beautiful. We can have conversation in the rooftop if you want about this. And I'm starting with sharing with you teacher Cecilia Tomás is a teacher of special needs and philosophy. She's actually majored in philosophy. She also did her PhD in philosophy, but she loves teaching kids. And Cecilia has inspired herself in a book of philosophy, the Sebi. It's a little robot from Peter Worley. And she does monthly sessions in her school with primary school kids. Monthly sessions of philosophy related to AI. And actually, she started doing this before ChatGPT, because sometimes I notice that people expect, when we're talking about AI, many teachers were only started talking about AI after ChatGPT. I'm going to show you 2 use cases, these case studies, that teachers were doing this work already on computational thinking and ethical thinking around artificial intelligence. So teacher Cecilia did this. She has 7 lessons. You can see it in AI Goes to School more detailed. 60 minutes each, monthly sessions, where students listen to a story about human children that have a robot friend. His name, this robot, is Sebi. And what she encourages students to do is to think critically about this friendship relationship between the robots. And she asks questions during the session, and children build their own conclusions. So the rule is that the teacher never says if it's right or wrong. They lead the children to get to their own conclusions, and the children are asked to follow these 3 rules. Raise their hand to speak, so people have time to think and stop their, sometimes people take more time, students take more time. Respect the speaker, the other friends who's speaking in class, and only help if asked. The tendency that to complete phrases, I have it a lot, from the other person, because we're going very fast in our head. We need to keep it slow, because critical thinking needs time, and we need to feel comfortable with pauses. And the students listen to this part of the story, and I'm sharing some questions that come with the story that teacher Cecilia asks the students. And one of them is, for example, is the robot Sebi a real friend? What is it to be a real friend? What does it mean? So we're talking about this human feelings or humanization of the machine. She's starting to distinguish this with the students in a very simple and non-direct way. Can little Sebi be a real friend? What happens? What do the children think? And she conducts the reflection. If a robot acts like a human, is it a human? And if we start treating it as a human, is it a human or not? And can it have feelings? Because many times the children will be challenged with this little robot having feelings of friendship, or being mad at his human friend, because they did something. And it's really interesting to see the kids reflect. And look at this other topic here. What kind of robot will it be? Is it genderless? Bringing on the topic of the gender. Why are we attributing genders to robots? What does that mean to us as humans? Are the assistants women? The Siri, the Alexa, but then the accountant is Watson and is male. Let's reflect, but with kids we don't. Here I can say it in this tone, but because I'm assuming something. I'm assuming you think like me, okay? But we don't need to assume. In children, we should, in education, create a safe space, because people can think different, like me and kids, of course. But this helps us have the conversation. So the robot story is something that follows kids for 7 months, this whole school year. They create a relation. They think very lightly, in a very collaborative, open space, about very complex issues. Right? So this is one example, and teacher Cecilia Tomás has this all in open resource that you can hear in Portuguese, the stories, but you can use her templates and record in your own language and use them to work with your students in class. She started working with kids on this before around 2021, because she did during the pandemic of COVID, so before ChatGPT. This is an example I love to go back to. Another example, so this was for critical thinking. Another example is teacher Claudia. Teacher, it was Claudia, was too, I need to be slower probably. 5 minutes, okay. Back. Okay, I'm gonna pass teacher Claudia, then you can take a peek at teacher Barbara. She teaches at secondary school and she teaches also in higher education. And what Barbara did was very simple, 2 lessons, 4 hours each. She works with her professional students and she explores AI as an assistant for co-creation with the students. And her goal was for students to start using ChatGPT to co-create and have the conversation around academic integrity with the students, and for students to experience themselves how AI can assist, how AI can assist really helpfully, or how it can be really limiting for their work. And so what she did was, so students wrote a story and then they put it in ChatGPT and they asked it for feedback. They built the prompts around it, and then with specific keywords from the story, they created prompts for DALL-E at the time to generate images to illustrate the story. And students were asked to keep a reflective diary on how their experience of interaction with the chat was for them. And she actually published this in an article. She was doing her master's at the time, or her PhD at the time. So she published this in an article. And overall, the students were very optimistic with AI, but they said something in their reflections that's really interesting. They said, okay, ChatGPT really has the ability to write stories and expand in details, but the narratives follow a very rigid, predictable pattern. And they also saw that ChatGPT generated stories with moralism, according to the students, which they found it limiting. So they think it cannot replace the human capacity for inventing stories, but it's a great start. But it's a fast and efficient tool. Students also said, we're very concerned about our work going to ChatGPT, because if it used other people's work, what about copyright? So students made the reflections themselves and shared collectively. This is in 2 classes. So this is something that we can also do. But schools, not only teachers have the responsibility, schools also have the responsibilities as a community and school leaders to create space for teachers to have the conversation and for the community to grow. And the case study that I bring to you is a school in Lisbon. You can check here the other case studies. The school in Lisbon is Agrupamento de Escolas Leal da Câmara, in Sintra. And it is a school that has a teacher librarian doing his PhD. This is not it, sorry, I can't. I'm having difficulties with my changing the slides, but let's see. I'll keep, thank you very much, really appreciate it. So the school this teacher librarian, so I'm talking about this teacher because it's very important to have informed teachers and informed people consulting and helping the school to create guidelines and to go towards a direction that helps the community. So what this school did, and at the end you'll see the roadmap, was through this teacher in 2023, so ChatGPT showed up in November of 2022, in 2023, thank you, the teacher created a roadmap and okay. And I'm gonna jump. This is the slide I wanted. This school created a roadmap, which is a beautiful roadmap on how the school would take responsibility and help teachers, students, and parents be informed about AI. And what happened was that in the school year of 22-23, they drew this plan, okay? This was all decided in 2022. And now they're putting into practice. So they would start with a reflection, open events like this one in the community, helping everyone think about what AI is. And they would, in 2023, create awareness. They would create a first draft of a policy of AI use in the school, putting together all teachers from all domains, areas, scientific areas, and they also involved students in the conversation and the Parents Association in the conversation to review the draft. So collaboratively, they prepared the moments to build the AI policy document for the school. They started implementing the AI policy at the beginning of the school year, this last school year, September 2024. Everyone was prepared. During the moment, you're going to see here lots of moments of workshops, reviews. Sometimes it's difficult, people don't have time to learn. Classes go on, teachers have their students, students have to study, there's no time. But the school can create the time. A time for everyone, a time for teachers. Instead of having a Wednesday afternoon off for meetings, let's have Wednesday afternoon off for learning. And this school created those moments, and they are now collecting feedback from the community on how the implementation of this policy is going. In this document, this policy has 9 pages. It's very short. It's like very high-level references, but it's the first guidance for everyone in the community. And this school, surprisingly, is still, I confirmed with teacher Carlos that did this roadmap with me, still the first school in Portugal to have done this. And we're talking about they have primary to secondary. Public school, I'm talking, okay? Maybe there are more, I don't know. We have, in many other countries, for example, in the United States, 25 states have given out the AI policies, high level for schools to build their own AI policies. So it's a bit more evolved there. In the UK, some countries in Europe, that's happening too. The UK this week launched some references for AI policies. But it's very difficult for schools to put in practice. And they don't do it not because they don't want it, but because it's sometimes so complex and overwhelming that it's difficult. And we need everyone's help to understand how to do this. So this is a good example of schools' responsibility on bringing this conversation to everyone. And I was just going to end with a last idea, that is the future. If all of this is important, we're all important. The future of education is not in the hands of AI programmers or AI itself. It is in our hands, in the hands of curious educators, of informed educators, and of critical thinkers in the community that get involved in AI in education. And I'm very happy to share with you this. So I'm very happy to share with you, if you want a follow-up of this, a summary of this presentation, and some reading materials of practical case studies for teachers. If you want to use this form and add your email there, I'm happy to share with you after the session. Thank you very much. Thank you. What thoughts? So we have probably 5 minutes only. 2 minutes. 2 minutes for one.
No, 5 is okay.
5 is okay. I'm sorry. I appreciate you letting me have more time. Maybe 2 questions. What's popping in your heads when you were looking at the presentation? Anyone want to share some idea, some examples, some questions that you had when you saw something that popped into your mind? Yeah.
Thank you for your it is very exciting. What I mean is that I think that teachers even more and more specifically than kids.
Right.
Because your sentence about teachers who have to get time to know something new is the crucial thing. And I really thank you for the study cases. They're really good. And I hope that what kind of problems here in Portugal are there for teachers and for their education in AI area?
There are several. They're divided in private programs and then there are public programs. So in public education, each, let's simplify, district has, or each agrupamento, groups of schooling, have a training center which serves them, which is partially financed by the Ministry of Education. And so they have a program of training sessions, workshops, from 3 hours to 25 hours training sessions. And many of them already offer training around AI in AI tools and AI thinking. So teachers can find those opportunities, and it counts for their progression. So it has all these benefits in terms of training. There are some private offers online if teachers find. The university where José Sotero, the next guest is speaking, also had a program once. So teachers can find, but in public schools, there are offers for training.
Okay, thank you. Do you see a great interest from the teachers in the topic of AI?
Teachers are very curious and interested in learning about AI. Many times what I see is that, you know, they're all at different levels. And sometimes they go to a workshop that's about a tool, but they didn't go through the literacy part. So they really don't understand how the technology works. So they kind of get afraid of using the tool because they don't understand how to control the data, privacy, safety. They don't know how to interpret that. And so we're all at different levels. With the challenge that I'm finding, even in private offers, I do workshops as well in schools and municipalities for teachers and parents as well. The challenge that I'm finding, and how do we get people all at the same level? That's why I like to start always the presentations with at least with a bit of information on what this is and what does AI mean. And that's the challenge that I'm finding, and people are exploring at different levels and then bringing it to school at different levels as well. But they're very eager, and it's in 20 years of working. So I've been working in education since 2003. In 20 years of teaching, it's the first time that I really see the education community internationally open to process change, because AI is not about tools, it's about changing processes in the way we teach and learn. All right, I'm not going to take more time. We have time to have conversations in the rooftop everywhere, please. I love having talks. So thank you very much for this time.